Welcome back, everyone. I don't really want to make this video, but as a Biden voter and a Biden supporter, I have to make this video. Trump supporter celebrates Biden faithful despair over US presidential debates. This debate was bad. This was bad for America, and this was bad for democracy around the world. So if you're not American, and you're trying to pay attention to US politics, I want to share this tweet from Ginny Hogan. If you don't live in the United States, please turn the debate off. This is our private family humiliation, and we'd all prefer you not stare at us. So I just want to say, let's be completely honest. If everyone in America watched the debate from yesterday, and then went to the polls and voted today, Donald Trump would be elected president of the United States again. Thankfully, we still have 4 or 5 months until the November election. A lot can change in 4 or 5 months, but this is a wake-up call for anyone who supports Joe Biden or wants to stop Donald Trump from being elected again. And for maybe younger voters or international people paying attention to US politics, you've got to be asking the question, why Joe Biden? Why is Joe Biden the nominee in 2024? And I just want to quick go through his history. He was elected to government first in 1970, and then elected to the Senate in 1972. So he's been in US government for 52 years. Here's a video clip of Joe Biden in 1987. He had already been a senator for almost 20 years, meeting with Ronald Reagan in 1987. And Joe Biden has always been a likable politician, very popular on both sides of the aisle. There's plenty of clips of people like Senator Lindsey Graham saying how much they love Joe Biden. And Joe Biden used to be a pretty good debater. This is when he was the vice presidential nominee in 2012 under Barack Obama, debating Speaker Paul Ryan. And this is what he looked and sounded like.
Vice President Biden, let me translate. Let me have a chance to translate.
I'll come back in a second then, right?
First of all, I was there when Ronald Reagan tax breaks, he gave specifics to what he was going to cut. No, number one, in terms of tax expenditures. Number two, 97% of the small businesses in America make less than $250,000. Let me tell you.
This was 2012. This was 12 years ago. Joe Biden is currently 82, so he was 70 years old in this clip. And he still sounded and looked pretty good. And here's Joe Biden 4 years ago, debating Donald Trump in 2020. This is what Joe Biden looked and sounded like.
People should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the court?
Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is,
Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
So it was even 4 years ago that people were talking about Biden's senior moments. At 78, he was already going to be the oldest man ever elected president. But he won that election. Donald Trump lost. And it's painfully obvious to everyone who watched the debate last night that Joe Biden has severely advanced in age. Being president of the United States just ages you faster, as you have duties every single day you have to tend to. So Joe Biden did not look good. He did not sound good. He's 82 years old. This is a fact. This is inescapable. And the problem with running for president is it's not just about can you be a good decision maker. You have to be a good communicator. You have to set an agenda, achieve your goals, and then explain to the American people that you did something. And Joe Biden can't do this. So I saw somebody give the example that Warren Buffett is still the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, and Warren Buffett is 93 years old. So you can still be very old, very advanced in age, and make good decisions. But Warren Buffett doesn't have to campaign to keep his job. as long as he keeps making good decisions, he gets to remain the chief executive officer of Berkshire Hathaway. Joe Biden has to explain what he's done the last 4 years for the American people to deserve another 4 years. And he currently can't do that. And we can just talk about the stats. The unemployment rate here in the United States is under 4%. That's fantastic. And it's been under 4% since December of 2021. If you want to find a job in America, you can do so. And that hasn't always been the case. When we go back in time and look at the unemployment rates, there was the COVID spike. But going back to the George Bush era, November or December of 2008, it was already above 7%. Other stats, the S&P 500 is at all-time highs. If you have an individual retirement account or 401k, congratulations, your retirement account is at all-time highs, assuming you're invested in the market in any way. GDP growth for the United States is booming. The economy is going crazy. It's overheating. Strong GDP growth for the last 2 years. The inflation rate is now 3.2%. I actually think, depending on which version of measuring inflation, it's actually under 3%. People are not happy about how much prices have gone up, but it's already better than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Everyone, for some reason, always wants to talk about the price of gasoline, and people love to complain about it. But the price of gasoline today is cheaper than it was 15 years ago, 16 years ago. Going back to June of 2008, the national average for a gallon of gas was already $4. The price of gasoline has been flat for 15 years, so I don't know why people keep talking about this, but whatever, let's move on. There hasn't been any government shutdowns. Congress, even controlled by Republicans, still managed to pass a budget. Joe Biden gets credit for that. The debt ceiling was raised. We haven't had an economic catastrophe like we have in the recent past. Joe Biden passed the infrastructure bill. He passed several key pieces of legislation that, honestly, I'm even blanking on now because he's not talking about it. His surrogates can't explain what he's achieved the last 4 years. And then when it comes to Donald Trump, everything Donald Trump says is either nonsensical, you can't understand it, or it's a lie. You can fact check everything Donald Trump says. He lied over 50 times in the debate last night. And Joe Biden can't in real time fact check him. He can't communicate a message of what Donald Trump is saying that is objectively insane. And I think this is a little disarming. Like, Donald Trump just kind of rambles at his rallies talking about whatever he wants to talk about, but this is not okay. This is not okay for the president to speak incoherently for significant periods of time. So there was a rally in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago in which Trump rambled about sharks and electrocution in the water. And rather than listening to Trump, let's put a comedian on and just once again highlight how absurd everything Donald Trump says.
I went to a boat company in South Carolina. The boat, I said, how is it? He said, it's a problem, sir. They want us to make all electric boats. So I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question. And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery is now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too, a lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat. 10 yards or here? Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark.
Let me know in the comments section, which would you choose, electrocution or shark? And this is disarming. It's really disarming when Trump says stupid and funny things sometimes, because in some way it makes him relatable or likable. But these are senior moments. These are senior moments all the time. Donald Trump is 78 years old. If he's elected in November, he'll be older than when Joe Biden was elected 4 years ago. So Trump will become the newest, oldest man ever elected president. He gets names wrong all the time. He just rambles at his rallies. But he has energy. That's the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump when you turn your brain off and you just look at them. Who appears more vigorous? And Trump knows this, which is why he plays it up all the time, which is why he just keeps going. He just vomits energy at his rallies because people do positively respond to it. But Trump is the biggest threat to democracy here in the United States since the Civil War. So here's a tweet that Trump posted on Truth Social, talking about, once again, the 2020 election was rigged. He's actually still the legitimate president of the United States, and Joe Biden and the deep state stole the 2020 election. And he says, a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. Trump has repeatedly called for ignoring and suspending the Constitution, the rules, the highest rules of the laws of our land. Trump does not respect. He does not adhere to. He will lie about anything just to get more power and authority for himself. And in 2020, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power here in the United States for the first time in 160 years, not since the Civil War. Trump refused to concede the election. He called all of his supporters to come to the Capitol when the 2020 election results were to be certified in the House of Representatives. And people died. Millions of dollars in damage. Thousands of people breaking into the Capitol, breaking into offices and computers and stealing stuff and smearing poop on the walls of our nation's capital. A police officer died. Dozens were sent to the hospital for serious injuries. Trump supporters died for a lie. So this is the truth about the 2020 election. Joe Biden got 81 million votes and 306 electoral votes. Trump got 74 million votes and 232 electoral votes. He lost. I honestly would respect Trump more if he just said, yeah, I lost, but I think America was better when I was president. I'd like to come back. Vote for me again. But he lies about absolutely everything. He has no problems destroying our democracy to just gain power for himself. And this is how serious of a threat to our nation Donald Trump is. Donald Trump's own vice president, Mike Pence, is not endorsing him, calling him a threat to democracy. Mike Pence refused to participate in Trump's schemes to overturn the 2020 election. Trump supporters were trying to murder Mike Pence on January 6th, chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Here is Donald Trump's national security advisor, retired Admiral H.R. McMaster, Trump is compromised on our principles. He's only in it for personal gain. Trump's former national security advisor is not supporting Donald Trump. Here is Donald Trump's former Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. Former Trump Defense Secretary brands him as a security threat. Here is Trump's former Chief of Staff. This is retired General John Kelly. God help us. What can I add that hasn't already been said? So anybody that Trump worked with, that Trump appointed to his government in his last administration, with military experience says Trump is unfit for the job. Trump is a national security threat to our nation. I believe retired Admiral H.R. McMaster, who campaigned for Trump in 2016. I believe retired General John Kelly, once again, who campaigned for Trump in 2016. There's a lot of people who believe that Trump is an idiot, but they can advise him, they can control him, they can guide him. Nobody can do it. That's what we've learned the last 8 years. Trump does not take good advice. He does not listen to moral and responsible people. Trump is a monster, and he just does whatever he wants and feels in the moment. One more person, former Speaker of the House, Republican Paul Ryan. This was Mitt Romney's VP nominee. And he says he's not voting for Trump this year because character is too important. Donald Trump did sleep with a porn star. He lied in the debate last night. Donald Trump has fathered 5 different children with 3 different women. He's bragged about entering the teen Miss USA dressing room to see teenage girls naked. Like, it's just disgusting thing after disgusting thing after disgusting thing, and at some point, character has to matter. But here's the threat. It'd be one thing if he was just a gross individual, but still kind of a competent or effective executive. But Trump is a fascist. He's a dictator. Trump lawyers right now before the Supreme Court, they're arguing that the President of the United States should be above the law. That the presidents, because they're such a national figure, they're too exposed to being sued in court. Therefore, anything the president says and does while being president should have absolute immunity from all criminal prosecution. This is what he's arguing in front of the Supreme Court. And this just makes you a dictator. If when you're elected president, you can do whatever you want, you can kill whoever you want, and there's no way to criminally hold you accountable, either during your term or after your term, that's a dictatorship. So Trump loves dictators. He loves Vladimir Putin. He loves Kim Jong-un. In 2016, Trump was tough on China, but as soon as he met President Xi and President Xi said nice things about him and served him a beautiful piece of chocolate cake, well, now Trump likes Xi. He's on TikTok. He supports China. So what I want, as a Biden voter, I just want American democracy to continue in 4 years. If we just re-elect Joe Biden, he's probably going to die in the next 4 years, but it doesn't matter. In 2028, we'll have a Republican primary to get a Republican nominee, and we'll have a Democratic primary to get a Democratic nominee, and American democracy in its current form will continue. But if Trump is reelected, he will never leave office. He's just not going to do it. He'll stay in the White House until he's dead, and he'll make sure that one of his children or his hand-picked successor will be the nominee and president. He'll use the full force of the military, the Justice Department, the FBI, Homeland Security. He'll use all powers available to him under the federal government to undermine our democracy, to ensure either his children or his hand-picked selector stays in the White House forever. This will be the last free and fair election in the United States if Donald Trump wins in November. So I know everyone is talking about, can't we just swap out President Biden? Nobody really likes Kamala Harris, and I'm actually now convinced Joe Biden deliberately picked her in 2020 so that she wouldn't become more popular and wouldn't outshine him. So he wouldn't be replaced this year by his VP. We can go to the Iowa caucuses 4 years ago in the Democratic primary. Pete Buttigieg won the Iowa caucuses, but lost the nominee. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. Everyone's talking about Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. I do think if Joe Biden had a heart attack and died before the Democratic convention in August, Gavin Newsom probably would become the nominee. But Joe Biden's not going to do it. He thinks he's the best chance to beat Trump. He honestly does believe that, even though objectively we can all look at this now and think this is absurd. So he's going to stay there. He's going to remain the nominee. He's going to remain on the ballots. And we don't really have a choice. We have to vote for him. So for people who support Biden, we have to speak in this language now. We have to talk about the election of 1944. Democrat Franklin Roosevelt versus Republican Thomas Dewey. This was 4 years into World War II. And Roosevelt was in a wheelchair. He was in poor health when he stood for re-election in November of 1944. And America still voted for him overwhelmingly. He tried to conceal his handicap and his illnesses from the American public. Here's Eleanor Roosevelt holding his hand, and he's got to hold onto the rail to use braces just to stand up for a photograph. And kudos to Joseph Stalin, who knew about Roosevelt's deteriorating health. This was at the either the Yalta Conference, the Tehran Conference, but Roosevelt had to be picked up and put in this chair for this photo op because everybody knew he was in a wheelchair. So Joe Biden still has my vote. I don't care if he's brain dead and on a ventilator. I'm still going to vote for him because this is a vote for democracy. I am a single issue voter. Don't ask me about abortion. Don't ask me about immigration. Don't ask me about trans people in women's athletics. I don't care. I just want the United States to remain a democracy for another 4 years. We get another chance. In 2028, we can pick a Republican to vote for. We can pick a Democrat to vote for. I don't want to vote for Don Jr. or whoever Donald Trump picks as his replacement when he dies. The good news, the silver lining, is that Trump is obese. He's not in great health, and he's 78 years old. So he's not going to be around much longer. I hope American democracy can survive this. We're going to do our best. But for any Europeans watching this, you now need to start considering what you want NATO to look like. What functions can NATO continue to do without the United States military if Donald Trump is elected? And as for the people of Ukraine, you still have my supports. You still have the support of tens of millions of Americans, even if Donald Trump goes against the wishes and will of the American people and cuts off support for your country in your time of need. This is where we are. It's a very dangerous world. Continue to fight, continue to stay informed, continue to be engaged. Democracy around the world needs you more than ever right now. Okay, that's all for this video. Stick with it, guys. We're going to keep fighting. Take care, everyone.